So how do you write a proposal for an instructional design project, or even a statement of work, or a project management plan? Like, what are all the components? What are the pieces? I go over this with my students in my project management class because they need to understand what are all the components to do this. And I like to go over every single possible component. So in my sample that I'm going to go through here, I address every type of project management possible. Now, keep in mind, usually when I'm writing a proposal, especially for a small company, it's only a few pages, and I'm only going to incorporate like 10% of what I'm going through now. However, I have written project plans for large, huge, multi-million-dollar contracts that had to address all of this, especially when I worked for a large company and I had to go through and we had all the, pieces in place to actually address all of these. So, I like to say, well, what are the right pieces of a project proposal? And the right pieces are the pieces that are required. Sometimes they're a lot, sometimes they're small. So keep that in mind as I'm going through this, that everything that I'm talking about and going through may or may not be required for the proposal that you're writing. But I like to cover all my bases just in case you have to do it. You know that it's there, and I've kind of went through what you're supposed to do. But also keep in mind that you don't need to always do all of this. You have to look at the project, look at the proposal, who the client is, and figure out what key pieces do I need to get this project, or what do I need to write here in my statement of work. Okay, so the first thing that I have here is an executive summary and project charter. These can be one and the same thing. I like to tend to keep them separately. I usually have an executive summary, which kind of overviews the problem, their company, our company, just a few paragraphs that kind of overviews what's going on. And then I have the project charter. Sometimes I feel like these are the only two things that people read. So I make sure to have the right information in them that, if someone's only going to look at this for 10 minutes, they're going to get a good overview of what the project is. Because sometimes I feel like that's all you have with someone. So they may not go through your whole entire proposal. They may only go through pieces. You never know. So that executive summary and charter are very, very important. So the executive summary is that overview, who's my company, who is their company. Then I have the project charter, which is also an overview. I like to keep my project charters 1 page. 2 pages, okay, it's like a resume. It's that. I'm going to look at this really quick and have all the required information. I have my project title and date. I have the project manager, the contact information for our company and their company. I articulate what is the high-level problem we're trying to solve, and what are the high-level objectives. What are the business goals for this problem? What am I trying? What are we going to try to really do here? I have a summary schedule, a summary budget. These are usually like a quick sentence or paragraph of when the project's going to be done, how much the project's going to cost. I may have a somewhat of a little breakdown, but it's very high level here. And then I have some success criteria. How will each goal be met? How are these goals, these business goals going to be measured? All right. Then I go into my introduction. It's where I have my project name, sponsor's name, qualifications of my company. Like I have my resumes, like full resumes. Here are all the people that are going to be working on this project. Here are their resumes. So that, because I want to win, or they need to see who these people are. I have to send the names of all my staff. I have a description of everything to make sure that, that longer problem description is really in there. Now I'm starting to get into the nitty gritty stuff where hopefully I've done some kind of gap analysis, or I have the results of me having my meetings with them where I really go into, here is the solution to your problem. If this is a proposal, sometimes if I know I'm the only person being selected, I might say, here are 4 options. I like to do that a lot, or 2 options of what you guys can do. I like to do that a lot. Sometimes that's written into my proposals where I say that, we can do option A, it's going to cost this much and give you this kind of, whatever. And here's option B, it's going to cost this much more, but you get this much. Here's what you get out of it. So I would be doing that there. I tell them my recommended solutions if there's one or more. any assumptions I'm making as I'm making this, because, it's usually when I'm having that 30-minute first conversation with them, I'm trying to give them numbers and stuff, but I'm making a lot of assumptions. When I write the proposal, I'm trying to get more specific. So I have to tell them, here's what I'm assuming. Like, I have access to a SME, you have a SME to even give me, that we have a system to install this on, that kind of stuff. Any constraints that I'm working with, any materials, like reference materials, I like to give them, show them how the research is formulating my solution to the problem. I think that's very important. And then any definitions, acronyms I'm using, they're using, things like that, that I want to make sure we have a operational definition of, because, I'm in the training field, and sometimes when I say I'm going to develop an instructor guide, if I ask 3 different people what that means, they could have different things. So I'm very big on defining things. All right, then we get into scope management. So I have my scope statement. What are my deliverables I'm going to give you? What is the purpose of each deliverable? And I'm going to describe it. I give them my WBS, my work breakdown structure. Here are all the deliverables. Here are all the work packages, that you're going to get. And I usually like to give them some kind of like little flow chart for the WBS that kind of shows them here's how it all works out. I talk about how we're going to sign off the scope of the project, who we're going to contact. What I also get into scope creep here. How are we going to control it? Is there some kind of change control board for a large company or small company? Like, what are we doing? Here is the process for scope creep, and this is how we're handling it right now. I have my schedule and my budget. I have a summary of each, and then the full thing. Here's what the full schedule is. Here's full budget. Full breakdown, line by line item of how much everything costs. That includes travel, that includes supplies, that includes every single thing that could possibly be charged during this project. Then I talk about if I'm implementing some kind of how is quality going to be controlled on this project? Are we having other people review? Are we using some kind of system? Are we trained in something like Six Sigma? Is your company using that? What is really happening here? What kind of management tool does your company have, or do we have? Do we have any kind of standard? What processes are in place? And we talk about resource management with organizational charts. I might develop a responsibility assignment matrix where I kind of give the breakdown of who is responsible for what. May have a communication plan where we talk about, who's going to receive such information and who are the SMEs, what are they going to get, what is everyone going to get, how are we going to communicate with them. We're going to have a risk management plan where we identify risks, we plan for risks. Then we have stakeholder management where we talk about who are all the stakeholders, who are all the people, who's important, who do we need to make sure we go through for every single thing. Because the last thing I want to do is do a project, get sign-offs from the people that I believe are the SMEs that are supposed to be signing off, or the project managers, only to find out that someone else wants to change something, and if it's not defined in my proposal or statement of work, what am I going to do? All of a sudden we got scope creep where they're telling me we need to go back and do something, things weren't done correctly. I make sure I define all of that, make sure they agree when they sign the dotted line of this is the project we're going to do, this is how much we're going to pay, all the stuff that they're agreeing to all of this. And then finally I have how we're going to close, either close the proposal and close the project. If it's a proposal, here are the next steps. Here's the action plan. Here's where we move forward. If it's a statement of work, I have the closing. Here's how we're going to sign off. Here's when we sign off. Here's how payments are made. Maybe I break up my payments into 2 or 3 times. Pay me this much up front, this much at the end. That kind of thing. It depends on the size of the project and how much it is. But I have all of that stuff written in there. I make sure I cover every single detail that I can think of that a project may encompass. A lot of this comes with experience, which is why I have this sample, proposal of what it could look like, everything you can include, because hopefully you're going through this and you're like, oh, I didn't think of that, and we need to have that for this project. I like to have, in that introduction, I didn't mention, but when I'm talking about here's my solution, I'm going to have like I might have examples. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's what here's a sample. It might be a mock sample. It might be a real sample. It might be something that I've developed before. It just depends on the project and the client. But I try to make sure that they have every piece of information and we've covered all our bases, because we don't want to get in the project and have things go wrong. Thank you.